Hello, friend. Today we're talking about something I think many highly sensitive people wrestle with. How do we honor our sensitivity without building a life around avoidance? How do we listen to our nervous system without assuming every discomfort means we should stop? And how do we protect our energy while still staying open to growth, courage, adventures, visibility, and the parts of life that ask a little more from us? Because there can be a subtle misunderstanding in the world of nervous system healing. And I say this with a lot of care because I deeply believe in nervous system support. I teach it, I live it, and I know how important it is, especially for highly sensitive people who have spent years pushing through, over-functioning, pleasing other people, and absorbing everyone else's emotions while ignoring their own needs. But sometimes we can start to believe that healing means avoiding anything uncomfortable, that if something activates us, it must be wrong for us, or that every wave of anxiety means our nervous system is saying no. Welcome to the Highly Sensitive and Strong podcast. I'm Daphne Lee, a former anxiety sufferer turned holistic anxiety coach, mindfulness teacher, mom, and guide for highly sensitive people. Anxiety was part of my life for as long as I can remember, and as a teenager, I was hospitalized for anxiety, panic disorder, and agoraphobia. Since then, I've learned to transform those challenges into strengths, and now I help people like you calm their nervous systems and live in a way that truly honors you. Each week, I'll share honest conversations, insights, and practical tools to help you heal anxiety in your body and mind so you can thrive as your highly sensitive and strong self. I'm so glad you're here. Let's get started. Sometimes discomfort is an important signal because it might be the body telling us, this is too much for me, it's happening too fast, or I don't have enough support for this yet. Sometimes our nervous system is asking us to pause, step back, create a boundary, rest, recover, or even leave a situation. But discomfort doesn't always mean danger. Sometimes discomfort is part of growth. Sometimes it's the feeling of trying something meaningful before we feel completely ready, or the feeling of telling the truth when it's hard, setting a boundary, creating something, sharing our voice and our opinions. Could be going on an adventure or letting ourselves live a little more fully. And the real skill is learning the difference, not overriding ourselves or hiding from life, but learning to ask, is this my nervous system saying no? Or is this my nervous system asking for more support as I stretch towards something that matters? And that question is really at the heart of today's episode because sensitivity is not the same as fragility. And you don't have to choose between honoring your nervous system and living a brave, meaningful life because you can do both. When I think about this in my own life, one of the first things that comes to mind is when I began teaching yoga. Now, people who know me today may not realize this, but when I first started teaching, which was about 30 years ago, public speaking was absolutely terrifying for me. I was not someone who naturally felt comfortable standing in front of others, having other people look at me and listen to me. My body would get nervous, my mind would question everything, and a big part of me wanted to disappear into the back of the room instead of stand at the front of it. And yet, yoga had changed my life. The practice had helped me come back into my own body after a period of really intense anxiety and panic disorder. It gave me tools for breathing, grounding, feeling, and being present with myself in a way I had never really known before. So even though teaching was uncomfortable, something in me knew it mattered because the discomfort was connected to something meaningful. I had a lot of fear, activation, and vulnerability around teaching, but there was also a sense of purpose and a sense that I was being asked to grow into something. And I think that distinction matters. If I had interpreted every wave of anxiety as a sign that I should never teach, my life would have become much smaller. I would have missed the path that helped me share the practices that had supported my own healing. At the same time, if I had simply pushed through without proper preparation, grounding, and support, that wouldn't have been healthy for me either. So, what helped was learning how to support myself as I stretched outside of my comfort zone, learning how to prepare, how to breathe, how to let myself be imperfect, allowing myself to teach one class and then another and another. Over time, I learned that I could feel nervous and still be present. I could become activated and stay connected to myself and the people I was working with. And that is very different from forcing ourselves to push through. And it's also different from avoiding everything that feels hard. One of the things I want every highly sensitive person to know is that needing support doesn't mean that you're fragile, but support is not the same as avoidance. A supported nervous system is not a nervous system that never feels discomfort. It's one that has more options, a little more space, and more ability to notice what is happening and then respond with care. So when we confuse sensitivity with fragility, we may start organizing our lives around staying completely comfortable. We may avoid hard conversations, going on trips. We might miss opportunities that present themselves to us, or we might shy away from new experiences because it brings activation. And again, I want to say that there are times when stepping back is the wise thing to do. There are times when the body is clearly saying no or not yet. But if we always interpret discomfort as a stop sign, we might accidentally train ourselves to become smaller in our lives than we are in our souls. And I say that gently because many sensitive people have very good reasons for protecting themselves. Maybe you were overwhelmed often as a child, or you were told that you were too emotional or too sensitive, and you learned that being seen was not safe. Maybe your boundaries weren't always respected, and your nervous system adapted by staying careful, pleasing others, avoiding conflicts, and trying not to need too much for yourself. So, if you have built a life around protection, that makes sense, and there's no shame in that. But protection is often the nervous system's way of saying, I'm trying to keep you safe. And sometimes, after a while, the same protection that once helped us survive begins to limit how fully we can live. And this is where healing gets interesting because we start to ask questions like, is this protection still needed in the same way? What would help me feel supported enough to try? Can I stretch myself without ignoring my needs? Nervous system healing is not about creating a life where nothing ever activates you. It's about building the capacity to stay connected to yourself when life asks more of you. It's learning what helps you come back home to yourself, knowing when to pause and when to proceed. It's learning when a sensation is a warning and when it's simply the body responding to something new or something meaningful. For sensitive people, this can be tricky because our bodies may respond strongly to both danger and growth. A hard conversation may make your heart race. A new adventure may make your whole system feel alert. And being visible or heard may bring heat to your face or tightness in your chest. I remember being called squid because I blushed easily, and it was really uncomfortable because I couldn't stop it from happening. That kind of body response can make us think something is wrong. I need to get out of here, I need to hide, or I need to make this feeling stop. But sometimes the body is not saying this is unsafe. Sometimes it's saying this is vulnerable. So if we only ask, am I activated? The answer may be yes, but that doesn't give us enough information. Some better questions might be, am I activated and still connected to myself? Do I have choice? Can I breathe through this? Can I slow down? Can I ask for support? Or maybe can I take this in smaller steps? It's helpful to know, does this discomfort feel connected to something meaningful and worth doing? Or does it feel like it's too much, too fast, or too unsupported? I want to offer you a simple framework that you can use in your own life. There are 3 zones I find helpful for us: the comfort zone, the capacity zone, and the overwhelm zone. Let's look at each one. The comfort zone is where things feel familiar, manageable, and not very activating. This is the zone of rest, recovery, safety, routine, and a feeling of ease. For highly sensitive people, the comfort zone is deeply nourishing. We need places, practices, relationships, and daily rhythms where the body can really exhale and relax. We need enough familiarity in our lives for the nervous system to be able to settle, and spaces where we're not always bracing, performing, stretching ourselves outside our comfort zone, or adapting. So, the comfort zone is where we restore ourselves. It's where the body remembers safety and where we have the space to integrate what we've already experienced. So please don't turn what I'm saying into another way to pressure yourself. You do not need to be growing every second of your life. You are allowed to rest, to have quiet routines, and to choose simplicity for yourself. So the problem is not the comfort zone itself. The problem is when fear quietly turns the comfort zone into a cage, when we're not actually resting there, but maybe we're starting to hide there. And when perhaps the life that we have built is safe, but maybe becoming too small for us. And that is when we may be ready to explore the next zone. The capacity zone is where something feels like it's stretching us. It might be uncomfortable and meaningful, but still workable with enough support. And this is where growth often happens. Not the kind of growth that comes from forcing or overriding yourself, but the kind that comes from supported stretching. So within the capacity zone, you may still feel nervous and activated, but you can use your tools. Maybe you need more time to prepare, more time to recover afterwards. You might need some extra encouragement or to take smaller steps, but you're not completely flooded or shut down. And this is the zone where you might say, "This is uncomfortable, but it matters to me. I need support. I can go slowly and take it one step at a time. I can prepare for it. I can come back to my body. I can let it be imperfect. And I can stretch myself without pushing myself into overwhelm." This zone is where courage becomes embodied. The quiet courage of staying with yourself while you do something meaningful that's hard. So instead of thinking, "I have to be fearless before I can do this," we might begin to think, "What would help this feel workable?" The capacity zone is where sensitivity and strength begin to work together. I want to pause here for a moment because this is exactly the kind of work we practice inside Rooted Resilience. Rooted Resilience is my monthly membership for highly sensitive people who want nervous system support, who want to build emotional resilience, and to learn practical tools you can use in daily life. Inside the membership, we're not just learning about the nervous system in theory, we're practicing how to work with it in real moments. Moments like a tense conversation with your partner, a day when your body feels overstimulated before you even know why. Or it could be a season when you know you're being invited to grow, but you don't want to overwhelm yourself in the process. One of my newest members recently told me she was surprised by the amount of value inside the membership and that the practices were directly applicable in her daily life. And she shared that they even helped her during a tense interaction with her husband, and it gave her tools to strengthen her overall resilience. This is really the heart of Rooted Resilience. And this month, our theme is courage and self expression. We're exploring how to let more of ourselves be seen, expressed, and lived without just pushing through, shutting down, or leaving ourselves and our needs behind. Right now, new members can begin their first month for just $7, so you can come in, explore the practice library, attend the live sessions, and see how it feels in your own body. I'll include the link in the show notes. And now let's come back to our 3-zone framework by talking about the overwhelm zone. The overwhelm zone is different. This is where something is too much, maybe it's happening too fast, or you don't have enough support. And in the overwhelm zone, our choice begins to narrow. The thinking mind may get foggy, the body might move into fight, flight, freeze, fawn, or shut down. You may feel flooded, panicky, disconnected. Maybe you're numb or irritable, or you feel desperate to escape and unable to access the tools that usually help you. So, this is not the zone where we want to force growth. This is where the nervous system is asking for more support, more space, protection, smaller steps. And it's such an important distinction because the goal is not to push yourself until you prove that you can handle it. The goal is to learn how to begin to notice the edge before you blow right past it. And for highly sensitive people, this is especially important because many of us were praised for overriding ourselves. We learned to keep going even when our bodies were saying no. Maybe we learned to be helpful, agreeable, and low maintenance. We might have learned to ignore the signals of overwhelm until we were completely exhausted, until we felt resentful, anxious, or just totally depleted. So, if you're learning to notice overwhelm earlier now, that is wisdom. And the overwhelm zone doesn't mean that you're fragile. It means the amount of input, pressure, speed, or lack of support has exceeded your current capacity. And our capacity can grow, but it grows through support, not self abandonment. An example of this from my own life recently was attending the yearly Oregon Country Fair. And if you've heard me talk about it before, you know that the Oregon Country Fair is a lot. There are thousands of people. We're camping for the whole week. Usually it's hot because it's July. There's a lot of noise, music. There's a lot of dust and crowds and long days, and it is a completely different rhythm than my usual life. So, from the outside, someone might think, why would a highly sensitive person even want to do that? And honestly, there are moments when I ask myself that too. But I'm not only highly sensitive, I'm also someone who loves a good adventure. I really appreciate beauty, creativity, connection, and experiences that make life feel vivid. So I have a part of me that's deeply sensitive and needs a lot of quiet and space and time for recovery. But I also have a part of me that loves music, art, people, movement, and the feeling of being part of something that's big and alive. Both of those are true. And this is something I think we need to make more room for. Highly sensitive people are not all the same. Some of us are really quiet homebodies, and some highly sensitive people are also high sensation seeking. Some of us are both, depending on the season, the amount of support we have, and the environment that we're in. So for me, going to something like the Oregon Country Fair requires a lot of support. I need lots of preparation. I need to have my earplugs. I need to rest a lot. And honestly, I need a lot of recovery afterwards and to be really honest about my own limits. I cannot pretend that my nervous system is the same as someone else's. But I also don't want to build a life where my sensitivity prevents me from experiencing things that bring me joy, connection, adventure, and a sense of wonder. So the question becomes, how do I support myself enough to participate? Not perfectly, not without discomfort, but without abandoning myself. And that is the capacity zone. It's not comfort, but it's also not overwhelm. It's that place of supported stretching towards something that feels meaningful enough to be worth it. Some of you may relate to this tension. You may love quiet, but also crave adventure. You may need solitude, but also long for deep connection. Maybe you are easily overstimulated, but also drawn to travel, music, nature, learning, creativity, or having new experiences. One part of you might want to hide under a blanket, and another part wants to move across the country, take a trip, perform a song, or try the thing that scares you. That doesn't mean you aren't highly sensitive. It means you're human. It might also mean that your sensitivity needs both protection and vibrant aliveness. And this is why self trust really matters because No outside rule can tell you exactly where your edge is. No one else can say, this is definitely going to be too much for you, or this is definitely good for you. You learn by listening, by noticing, experimenting with small steps, and asking your body better questions. Not just, is this comfortable, but is this meaningful? Is it aligned? Is it workable with the right amount of support? And what would recovery look like afterward? When I look back on my life, some of the choices that shaped me most were not the comfortable ones. Moving cross country multiple times, starting over, choosing paths that were not at all conventional, becoming a park ranger, teaching yoga, building a business, sharing my voice and my ideas. None of those things were free from anxiety or uncertainty, and in fact, many of them brought a lot of uncertainty into my life. And I think this is where our deeper work really starts to come in. We want to feel certain before we make the next big move. We want to feel certain that we're going to succeed and that we won't be judged harshly. We want to know that we're making the right choice and that it's not something we'll regret. But sometimes life doesn't give us that kind of certainty in advance. Sometimes self-trust is not knowing exactly how everything will unfold, but knowing that you'll stay connected with yourself and you'll stay in a place of taking care of yourself as you take the next step. And this doesn't mean leaping without discernment. It means listening carefully, taking time to really prepare, and moving at the pace that's not going to overwhelm you, and being willing to let life be a little larger than your fear. So, how do we begin to tell the difference between discomfort that signals growth and discomfort that signals overwhelm? There isn't a perfect formula, but there are some questions that can help. First, we can ask ourselves, do I still have access to some choice? So, in the capacity zone, even if you feel nervous, there's usually still some sense of choice. Knowing you can pause, slow down, adjust the plan, or use a tool to support you. So, for example, when I first started teaching yoga, I always planned my classes beforehand and I wrote them down so I'd have something to follow if I got really nervous and blanked out. So, another thing we can ask is whether or not this is connected to something that's really meaningful to us. Growth discomfort often has meaning in it. You may feel scared to have the conversation, but honesty matters more to you. Or you feel nervous to share your work, but the creativity is really nourishing. Another thing you can ask is, can I make this more manageable? Many highly sensitive people jump from avoiding something to trying to do the whole thing all at once. But capacity is often built in smaller steps. Can you send an email instead of making a phone call? Can you attend for 1 hour instead of going to the whole event? Or can you share your idea or something creative that you've made with one trusted person before sharing it publicly? Can you take a break partway through? Another thing you can ask is, what support would change this? Sometimes we think the answer is no, when it's really not like this, not at this pace, not without a boundary or a plan in place. Support can turn something from being overwhelming into being workable. And the last thing that we might ask ourselves is, am I staying connected to myself? And this could be the most important question of all. Am I overriding the needs of my body in order to prove something? Am I ignoring my needs to make someone else comfortable? Am I saying yes from fear, guilt, or people pleasing? Or am I choosing this from a deeper place? Can I still feel my feet and take a deep breath? So, this is the practice. It's not doing hard things by abandoning yourself, but doing meaningful things while staying in relationship with yourself by honoring your needs and your sensitivity. So, this framework can be applied in very ordinary ways. Before a social event, you might ask, what would keep this in my capacity zone? Maybe the answer is driving yourself so you can leave when you're ready to. Or maybe it's just not scheduling anything demanding the next day so that you have more time to recover. Before a hard conversation, you might ask yourself, how can I stay connected to myself while I speak honestly? So maybe the answer is writing down what you want to say so you've really thought it out. Or maybe you need to take 3 breaths before responding or giving yourself permission to pause. If you want to do something adventurous, you might ask yourself, what does my sensitive system need in order to participate? Maybe you need earplugs, or maybe you need to eat a really nourishing meal beforehand. Maybe you need to build in some quiet time, or you need that extra recovery time afterwards. Needing these extra things aren't signs that you're high maintenance. They're signs that you're learning how to work with your nervous system instead of against it. And that is strength. As we close, I want to leave you with this. Your sensitivity is not fragility. Needing support is not a weakness. Needing time to recover is not something to be ashamed of. And your desire for a meaningful, brave, expressive life doesn't have to be too much for your sensitivity. You don't have to choose between honoring your nervous system and living a life that stretches you. You can rest, prepare, ask for support. You can go slowly. You can say no when something is truly too much for you. And you can say yes when something meaningful is asking you to grow. This is how our sensitivity becomes real strength in our lives. It's not by pretending that we're unaffected by things or forcing ourselves to push through, but it's learning how to stay with ourselves as we meet life. One breath, one boundary, one small, brave step at a time. If this episode resonated with you, I hope you will save it and come back to it whenever you are discerning the difference between fear, growth, and overwhelm. And if you know another highly sensitive person who needs the reminder that they can honor their nervous system and still live a big, brave life, I hope you'll share it with them. Take good care of yourself. You are sensitive, you are strong, and you are deeply worthy. I'll see you next time.